In a Russian coastal town, Kolya is forced to fight the corrupt mayor when he is told that his house will be demolished. He recruits a lawyer friend to help, but the man's arrival brings further misfortune for Kolya and his family. Also, there's a lot of vodka in this film. Like, a lot. Like, picture vodka in a room and then double it. That's as much vodka as you'll get in this film. They're constantly drinking. We're not. It's early in the morning, but welcome back to the 2.54 centimeter barrier. What are you drinking? Kevin's drinking. Sorry, you stole my bit. I forgot to do this, but I was like this close to having like an empty vodka bottle, filling it up with water and constantly swigging and not addressing it. I love that you're doing it. But I'm your Graf and I'm joined by Kevin Taelemans, and we're here to share our thoughts on Leviathan by Andrey Zvyagintsev. And he's got a new film playing in Cannes called Minotaur. And we'll have a review out for that one soon because we're both heading to the festival this year ourselves. This film, Leviathan, actually won the Best Screenplay Award in 2014 and played in competition already. The director is no stranger to the festival circuit. His 2003 film, The Return, won the Golden Lion in Venice. And then he was like, I won that festival. I'm never coming back. And consecutively just went with to Cannes for all of his films. And in 2007, his film The Banishment won Best Actor for Konstantin Lavronenko at Cannes. And then in 2011, his film Elena won the Special Jury Prize in Un Certain Regard, which is like the second prize. In 2017, Loveless won the Jury Prize, which is like the third prize in competition. And his earlier film that won Best Actor, that also played in competition. So he's like returning yet again for his movie Minotaur, that I'm very excited by. But let's get back to Leviathan, which we both noted is an incredibly depressing movie that sort of slowly unfolds like disaster right in front of your eyes, and you can do nothing about it. You just can also get drunk alongside them. I think it's got like expert filmmaking with great performances, and it sort of captures the small town family drama setting really well. And I assume I'm speaking for you as well, Kevin, that like some of the big biblical stuff with Job and the further history of like the meaning of Leviathan as like a creature went a bit over our heads, but without like us seeking further context, which I did a bit, which sort of I think helps to set up our conversation. So I'll do that very briefly, but like it comes from the Book of Job, which is sort of a modern remake of, and that's appears in the Hebrew Bible, but also in the Old Testament for the Christian Bible. It's basically Job getting tortured for not believing in God, like sort of losing everything, his health, his children, his wealth. And it's in the text, like these back and forths that they have as sort of everyone around him is told that like, oh, he's had it bad because God is like letting it all happen to him because he's a bad person. And Job knows that that's not the case, but he can't really do that anything against that omnipotence that God possesses. And it's sort of an illustration of like, you buy into the, at least to me, like you buy into the higher power to ultimately sort of persist because you need to believe in the deity and sort of see your own shortcomings of your limited understanding of the world and God, the omnipresent, all powerful in a way. And like in the epilogue in that, like his family and wealth is like restored. And I think it feels a bit less like that in this, but it has a bit of like a modern respin on this that I really enjoyed. And like a couple of years earlier, the Palme d'Or winner, 3 years before Leviathan was at the festival, Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life also draws a lot from the Book of Job. So like in the 2010s, a bunch of people were just looking for jobs. Okay. I'm about done, Kevin, but I think it's also like Leviathan is also more simply put the embodiment of chaos, and we see that like skeleton on the beach, which is featured in the poster as well with the kid sitting there. I gotta say, like I really liked it a lot. It's very heavy and it's bleak and quite depressing, but it also made me very curious to watch more of his films. Like I'm desperately want to make time to watch more of his stuff. Although he seems to be very, like even his new one is like somewhat obsessed with talking about like cheating and sort of marriage again. So that seems to be sort of a focus that he has. But I yapped for a whole bunch, gave you more than enough context to jump into this film, which we'll have a pretty much spoiler discussion for. But what did you think of Leviathan?
I must admit, I was quite surprised with Leviathan, especially the way that, like, we see some of these movies from Iran, of the Middle East, and how they talk about corruption, and sometimes specifically a like specific part of the law, and sort of try and create a story around that. And here, also a little bit in the vein. I know you've watched it recently of like asbestos, like these like movies of the little man versus the big corporations or the government, and this movie really belongs in there. And I was quite surprised how it depicted corruption, because I do have the Blu-ray in it, and even here it says like a visually arresting epic which takes an unflinchingly direct look at modern day Russia and the corruption that sees in even its quietest corners.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering, because this movie, on the opening title credits, and like even said like, oh yeah, financed by the Russian Ministry of Culture.
Yeah,
which obviously I was a bit surprised by after the movie. It's like, oh wow,
they didn't like
really
some of the
money
depictions.
to this movie.
Yeah, they didn't like it after the fact that much once they saw the movie. But I think they financed like 35% of it.
And I was quickly wondering, like, are all these movies like supported by Russia? You know how on Letterboxd you can see the country.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, went to look for the other ones, and I saw that his movie, so Loveless, was the movie that he made after this. It does still have Russia in these countries, but it also has Belgium, France, and Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And now with Minotaur, I quickly went to those countries, and it does say Latvia, France, and Germany. So it does seem like Russia obviously is not in the country or like the producing side anymore, for logical reasons, I assume.
Yeah.
But it is quite curious how these filmmakers from this country, like Iran, we have the movie from a separation director, quickly forgot his name, also making a movie in France. So I don't obviously know the backstory of this director, but I do assume that, obviously he has a tough time making movies, and has to go to different distributors, producers, and all that. But let's talk about Leviathan in particular. Like you said, a lot of vodka.
So much vodka.
I know it's like a little bit of a stereotypical thing, but it's really like, how does anyone conduct business in their state of mind? For example, when you do have the Russian official that is absolutely like gone, right?
Yeah.
And still goes to his house and has like the energy to keep talking.
Yeah. The thing is, the funny thing about that scene is like that everyone in that scene, apart from the mayor,
from the kid,
actually did drink for real. And I think they were like on the 6th or like 9th take or something like that. And the lead guy who plays Kolya, he was so drunk that like he had to step outside of the scene like to go throw up. So a lot of the scenes where like you see the mayor, he's like acting against no one because everyone is like so passed out from drinking so much, which is just it's such a crazy approach, like to go about a movie, to actually drink, to be like sort of this authentic drunk. And it did, like in that scene, I did think the mayor did like the worst drunk acting, because I guess he was the least actually drunk. But I mean, still decent acting. It's so good. But like the other was so convincing. I didn't even like consider that they were actually drunk, but they just drunk for a lot of like the actual scenes.
Yeah, especially for the first half, because I messaged you like, oh my god, this is really sobering second half, because they sort of like are dealing with the are dealing with their emotions, and I guess it's a bit more like hard hitting when you are dealing with your emotions sober instead of drunk. And after, obviously some heavier stuff happens, we can go back to the vodka, right? I mean, there was this literally scene where he goes to a shop and he's like, 2 vodka, please. And it's like 2 bottles. It's like, huh? No.
Doesn't she? Is the clerk like ask her like, what do you want? It's like, vodka. What else? It's like, okay,
what else? Yeah,
what else?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's just like, I told you, like it's just unlabeled, just like a random like
sometimes
clear bottle of vodka. It's like not a brand on it the way that they sell it. I guess it's a little like town store, but I also felt like the location of where they are, because like the conflict is basically like that we're thrown into, that it's already an ongoing thing that the mayor wants to plot for. I believe a large chunk of the movie we aren't told like what he specifically wants to do
A
with
communication
it.
center.
It's always implied that like the way that Kolya sees it, that he wants to build up a palace that like he swears to break down, like to tear down once it's built up. So there's a lot of that anger, and I think you also like messaged me when you were watching that, like, oh yeah, this guy is clearly not the brightest. And I think there's like some dark comedy bits in here as well, like the way that they communicate or miscommunicate, or that they lash out, that is both tragic but also kind of funny in parts. And I think like the moments that aren't like the dynamics that are 100% established, I think we said that like we'll talk spoilers for this, so it's implied that you've seen, we expect that I guess you've checked this movie out yourself, but like the first meeting between the lawyer friend and his partner when they cheat with each other, it's like never explicitly said, and it's the director's intention, if this is the first time they've hooked up, if it's the first time that they did this, or if it's not. And it's like meant to sort of imagine you having to fill in the rest of like this affair of how long it's ongoing. And I didn't really read it. Read to me as like the first time when I watched it. I sort of just took it as that. But there's a lot of like, you know, people being mad at each other for a variety of reasons in this movie that I think it's like, you know, sometimes they're like, why are you so angry? and why are things happening? But you sort of really feel their frustrations and their emotions really, like, because they're quite broad and direct. But yeah, like, what was the outstanding thing to you? Because like, I think visually it's interesting. I think on a screenplay level, it's really an interesting adaptation of like this biblical story to sort of retell it as these like doomed creatures that seem to be like punished by this deity. And I think it really closes that with the very end of the film. But
the standout to me, besides the wonderful acting performances, admittedly, I was like, I recognize the lead guy from somewhere. I don't know from where.
Nora.
And then it's like Nora, but actually, I was thinking more of Nobody. I was like, oh, he's Nobody. He's also Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the standout actually was the cinematography. You know how we talk about, you know, these like grayish blockbuster movies, like you really could like go so much further with your color grading, and with this one, it fits his bleakness. And I think the cinematography really lends itself to the story in this time. I know that's like a cliche thing to say, but it really like is applicable in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have something as interesting as the whale and like the whale skeleton to return to, like it does really impact it in the frame, where it's the boy that goes to the whale to like let out his emotions there.
I sort of took it as like, is it the whale skeleton, or is that supposed to be the like Leviathan creature? Because like that's how sort of I saw that. That's like
I saw that as well. Yeah,
the carcass of that.
My only real problem with this movie is I can't figure out the kid. Is that the point of the movie?
Yeah.
Maybe, but I can't figure out this kid, because this kid goes from hating his mother to then hating his father to like loving his father again. It's like I can never figure out why the kid hates his parents. Is it because he's not like, because obviously they have to get rid of the house, or like they are trying to get rid of his house, and it's like, does the kid want to get out of the situation they're in? Like, does he feel bound by the decision of his parents? Is that why he's angry? Is it just because he's a teenager?
Did I mistake that? But I thought that like that the she's not actually his mother, like that his mother is
no, yeah, but
I think that's why he hates her. Like it's really like that he doesn't accept her as his mother. And
but
I think that's the extent of like his hatred. And I think it's that like then the punishment of like that kid, because I think it's like also like very strongly implied that he's the, like, major spoilers, that he's the one that kills her, right? And yeah, I think like we're not given enough of that to be a full characterization where we see him rationally come to that decision. It feels more like there's this like higher entity that's influencing his worst tendencies. And then I felt like when he's out next to the like skeleton is sort of when we transition to like the resting thing of like this evilness, this chaos that is then sort of living through him to bring out his worst tendencies through God that ultimately gets to be the higher power and sit at the top of like this nice spot that they have to themselves. That I was thinking the whole time, like, it's not like there's not enough space in this place. They could just build somewhere else. And like that's to me was the biggest frustration. Like, why does he want like their space so badly? I know it's a nice like a nice spot to be building on, but it feels but it's just go build somewhere else. It's not like there's a lack of space around.
No, and like it is never really implied what they are building. Like you said, he does mention a communication center at a certain point, and like you said, why not build anywhere else? But it's also the sort of vendetta that the official has against the little guy. Can I also say the movie sort of ends and starts and ends the same way but the way they are reading that quickly in court, like it's almost like she's rapping.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, huh? How can you possibly follow this? Because like the way they are reading that.
Сергеев не был уведомлен за год до предстоящего изъятия, пункт 3 статьи 279 ГК, в связи с чем понес ряд расходов на улучшение принадлежащего ему имущества. Кроме того, при определении выкупной цены не учтены убытки заявителя от потери бизнеса, организованным на принадлежащем ему земельном участке, не учтены его обязательства перед третьими лицами, статья 281 ГК. Судом установлено, что постановлением администрации город Прибрежный номер 1295 у Сергеева изъят земельный участок с расположенным на нем зданиями и постройками для организации центра связи муниципального значения. Постановлением определена также выкупная цена земельного участка, расположенных на нем зданий, сооружений, построек в размере 639 540 рублей 27 копеек. Выкупная цена определена на основании отчета оценщика. Обществом с ограниченной ответственностью «Альянс» по заказу Сергеева.
Also, it's like all of the decisions, like there's no like, hey, I guess like it's a final decisions, which maybe fighting for the case also in court would have been a bit more interesting for me because it always seems so final. And I guess you want to make it a bit more of a character drama instead of a courtroom drama. But I would have loved to see the fight in court a bit more, especially from the lawyer.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's also, it feels a bit more like a critique on the like how you can legitimize yourself by using sort of ill faith, you know, sort of using it the wrong way of justifying certain things, and like the way that even in the corruption the like people of God are like a part of the corruption cycle, very much embedded into it, and that like the people who think they are like on the side of this established rule, like a lawyer, does come short when you can just like operate outside of that system. And I think that's like very broad, like non like specific things to observe about this film. But I think that it makes a real point to emphasize on those, that like when he's threatened with his life, then he ends up leaving. And then, yeah, I think like it gets a bit muddled with how much is happening. I think I don't know why we need the sort of fallout between these characters to be because of the wife that's cheating. I guess it's just like more for her that she's like unhappy with the relationship that she's in. And I think it's also like great to never give us a moment to conclusively say, other than like later on in the analysis of like the biopsy of what happened to her, that like she was killed before she fell. Because for a large chunk of it, we don't know what happened, as like he almost like, well, I think as a Russian it's really hard to drink yourself to death, but like he keeps drinking so much. Then we find out when he's arrested that like there actually was like a murder weapon and something happened to her, and she didn't just jump. And I found that to be like leaving us in that lingering space for so long was, I think, a really interesting decision for this film overall, because it leaves you unknowing for such a large chunk of the film of like, what's even the reason to be putting them all through this? So ultimately, it's a church. And like a lot of these things it leaves us in, and it's just as uncomfortable as like these characters are feeling, and their into like personal relationships is like this unknowing thing of like what even motivates these characters to do like this harmful thing towards each other, and why hold so much anger as well.
Yeah, the most interesting scene to me was actually like I admittedly let out a laugh, because so when he assaults her in the cellar, and so they start kissing, and then it cuts to the kid who is holding a box, is bringing it downstairs, And I must admit, I did let out a laugh because he sees their hand and like slightly of the face. They suddenly stop, and then it's like, chick, like put out the line. It was like, that is such horror movie timing.
Yeah.
That was like that felt so out of place for me there.
Yeah, and I don't know why he's so like, the kid is obviously like, he doesn't like her, I guess. But I don't know why he gets so incredibly mad and like storms out in that way. It's like, what does he want? What is it? Like, obviously it's a shit thing to catch him, but what is his goal? Like, what does he want? Does he want the dad all to himself, or does he just want like to live in a different place? Does he like maybe the lawyer guy a bit more, of like showing him a different side of like, I think that like the kid character, like you said, is never really that much explored, like what he would want. And I think it just comes from the kid also not knowing what the fuck he wants, and just like he acts very impulsively too.
Like, even when the friends of his parents come by and it says like, hey, we want to be your guardians, and it's like, why would you want me? Or like, I don't remember the specific line, and it's like, bro, like, do you want to go to the orphanage? Like, obviously you would take also you already are friends with their son or kid anyway, and it's a bit in a better situation than going to the orphanage. So I don't know why it's even like, seriously, like, why? Like,
I think that teenage short-sightedness is really what comes through in that character, right? That like a lot of his actions, even the most dire ones of him killing, is like, seems very like not thought through.
I also, because in like the trivia it does say Leviathan was criticized by the Russian ministry, like you said, at 35%. For its negative depictions of ordinary Russians, but like not of the way that they depict the official, with the fact that they do keep all like blackmail or like negative stuff on their officials to keep them in check.
Yeah, it's also like implied of like, oh, if this gets out, if this like lawyer guy from Moscow, like that's why they go so drastically of like threatening his life, because it is sort of implied like, oh, if this gets to Moscow, we're in actual trouble. So like, I think it sort of is like clean for the country's regime to say like, oh no, we got this in check. It's just that we didn't know about this, and that's why like, I think it's like operating in that gray area where it sort of works out.
Love how you tucked your gray shirt as you said.
I mean, I got some more facts, like actually, you are right. I guess it's a whale skeleton, but I just felt like it was like sort of this creature, this Leviathan creature, but that was built out of metal, and then like some businessmen bought it, and apparently like now it's just like outside on the lawn of some rich guy's house, which I found to be quite funny. And like the lawyer guy and the I think actor's name is Elena, who also was in his other film Ilana, but there she didn't play Ilana, but someone else played Ilana, which had me thrown for a second. I was like, okay, that's very confusing. But the lawyer guy, Vladimir, whose last name I'm not going, like Dimitri and Lilia in the story, these two actually married a year later and are still married, so they're an actual couple in real life, which I found quite curious. And also like the way that it's sort of inspired by, like there were different versions of this at one point where like he wanted to like adapt a story. It was more like in the works with the US, but then like based on novellas and like stuff like that. But then he sort of changed that, and ultimately it did go for a bit more of like a timeless setting. There was this goal overall, and then he did decide to shoot it back in Russia, which I think is an interesting choice here. Instead of like a director who's been so successful at the festival circuit, you would sort of assume that at some point, like you see it at this year's Cannes edition so much, that like a lot of these like Iranian, Japanese filmmaker is working with like the festival, premiering them in France, and then you have a lot of like French co-productions, or like Belgium is a big country that does like co-productions with a variety of like countries all around the world, and even like you said, has done one with him as well. And like the temptation to go into sort of, you know, the more mainstream route, instead of being really successful at being selected in like these the festival circuit, and especially in Cannes, and also winning awards basically every time you're there. is quite impressive, and it has me like sort of a little bit worried for the very stacked lineup of like, oh, this guy is always like getting at least one award. Like, which one will he get this time around?
I do fear another podium stage. I don't think he'll get the trophy.
Yeah, he has never gotten the Palme d'Or. The main, I think, I don't know whether. Okay, so he's won the Golden Lion, right? And if he wins the Palme d'Or, let's say he wins it this year. Like, does he go for the Golden Bear next year and he just goes to Berlin, or do you think he comes back again? Well, I think Venice to Cannes is an upgrade, right? I think it's fair to say that is. I think Cannes is the biggest film festival in the world. So it's crazy to have someone who's had like four of his films screen. No, 3 of his films in competition, 1 in Instant de Regard, and 1 in competition in Venice, and they're winning the main prize. It's a crazy. I feel like, because it's also crazy to me because I don't know about you, but I've never heard of him. I've seen the poster before.
Oh
Leviathan,
no, I have heard of his movies a lot. Like, right. I do believe I own like 3 of his films. I own The Return. I'm certain. I have Leviathan. I think I have Loveless. I'm not sure. And I think I once almost bought The Banishment. Like, I don't know which country Blu-ray it was, but I was like, I could technically buy it. I think it was Belgium because of Lumiere. They sometimes release Blu-rays. But yeah, I must say, this movie was really good, really solid, hella depressing, and I just know his other movies will be quite depressive as well. Loveless, like the goddamn logline already reads: a missing child, a marriage destroyed, a country in crisis. That sounds very jolly, right? Yeah. And obviously, The Banishment, if you want to kill, kill. If you want to forgive, forgive. And even with Minotaur, with that topic being cheating, also gonna be very fun.
Yeah, and him being a like CEO of a company, like about to let people, like firing people. So the tension of that at home, but also at work. And the crazy thing is, for that one, they didn't even list like the actors yet. So I don't know if there's any overlap with his like recent films, and I got no clue if it's like what it's based on, what it's inspired by, if it's like an original idea. Like, we really know, like, this is very exciting. We really don't nothing like concrete about this one, and I'm very excited for it. And also with the quality of Leviathan, I'm very much willing to like go back and revisit some of his filmography later on after we come back from Cannes, if you will have me, and you already own some of them, because like there's some great, like, even I think one of his films is even in the Letterboxd like top 500 in like the 250 range.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think it's The Return. It's
probably the 355. We got The Return in there at the moment at a 4.2 rating, which is great. And he also makes a bit longer movies like this. We didn't say it yet, but it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes. His upcoming Minotaur, I believe, is also set to be like 2 hours and 18 roughly, and I think it's like right on the line where he really earns that runtime. And it's, I think the cinematographer, I don't know if that's been announced yet, doesn't say if he's like back to also be the cinematographer for Minotaur, but some of his work includes
Vermiglio
as well, which we're familiar with, and then some of his other films like Elena the Banishment, Loveless, and The Return. So it's basically been all of them. So I assume that he's returning for Minotaur as well. It's just like that the credits aren't up to date yet. But I'm also interested to see like if people are very like sort of against this film being in competition because he is Russian. If that's going to have an effect, even though like Russia has no involvement with the film, if that's going to be like a talking point where like at every sort of public thing he has to denounce Russia, otherwise like media outlets are going to flip out. I'm curious to see what that discussion will be like, if it like overshadows the film and what the film is about, like if it has any ties to like that as well, or if it's like what the themes is really still quite open. But you got anything else to add for Leviathan?
Nope. I'm just very curious to dive into this guy's filmography, and that's about it.
I didn't think that like back in 2026 we'll dive more. We'll go back to Russia a bunch of times. But I guess we might actually. Feels wrong to say, but actually we might. But Kevin, for next week's episode of the 2.5 centimeter barrier, it's back to being your pick because Leviathan was mine. What are we talking about next week?
I really regret La Libertad being my pick.
You should. It's at least it's short. It's not like you gave me a 3-hour long like April type movie.
But my next movie, Ewan, is actually 113 minutes, so it's not that long. But it is Asian.
Of course it is. How could it not?
The movie is called Sweet Bean. That's the next pick. I actually really like this movie. Actually, dare I say, love this movie. I don't know what your first impressions are of Sweet Bean, but
it's about like the master of a dorayaki pastry store hires a 76-year-old woman whose talents attract customers from all over. And then is it something that's heartfelt? Is it like sad or is it more comedic?
Well, you'll see.
Okay.
But what I will say is you'll recognize Kirin Kiki, because she's been in a bunch of Koreeda films, and she's absolutely wonderful in that movie. I don't know I don't remember if she's supporting or the lead, but like she honestly deserved an Oscar for her performance in Sweet Bean. I thought.
Okay.
It's that good.
Very curious. I've loved her, like, Shoplifters, Still Walking, Like Father, Like Son. Those are amazing films. And I will check this out, and I'm actually looking forward to this. It's not some random ass just like Japanese movie. You actually picked something that I'm looking forward to as well, which is very exciting.
What the fuck?
What? It could be some random ass movie that no one has seen, but you picked something. I was like, what's Sweet Bean? And I thought you brought this up a while back as well.
You really are like, he's finally picked a movie that had at least 5K logs more and more.
Yes, a movie that maybe at least a percentage of people might have heard of or possibly have access to. I love that, yeah. But
to be fair, it's a movie. It's a movie at the moment if you want to watch it.
Well, we will see you next week after we're back from Cannes. We are gonna be so exhausted, but looking forward to talking about even more movies.
You see these bags? They're gonna be longer by the time we.
When I looked in the mirror this morning, I had such huge eye bags. I don't know how noticeable they are now, but like I was like, Jesus Christ, I gotta get some sleep before we go to the festival. But we'll see you soon. Goodbye.